Australians as the Chinese. Firstly, you might want to preserve the animal. Okay, now health and the bigger church and not just focusing narrowly on the secondary care and the acute stuff. That's base care, which are really big. And you've heard some.
Hello guys, welcome to Raising Boys with Glado the Nutritionist. Karibu in the kitchen, and we want to make mandazis, and I want to show you how I cut different shapes. So come on guys, that is what we'll be doing today. So this is what we'll be using to cut the shape.
In a nutshell, you have talent all over the world, equally distributed. Kenyans are as capable as Brits, as Australians, as the Chinese. But the thing is, opportunity is not equally distributed. Okay? And in high-income countries, they've been spending money on healthcare for a long period of time, in fact twice as much as low and middle income countries. And as a result of that demand, the healthcare systems in those high income countries are huge, and they are the net importers of talent as well as all sorts of health and healthcare products and services. So where is that talent coming from? You've got basically talent coming from low and middle income countries, specifically India and the Philippines, but it's a long tail, okay? And why does the talent come from those countries? Because governments in those countries have taken public policy decisions to get organised and to use their collective power. In India, effectively, they produce lots of talent. I'm not going to give you the numbers right now, we're talking millions. We have some information, we can certainly share that with you. In the Philippines, in India you've got more than 1 million places in diploma nurses, just an example, and more than 1 million places for nurses doing degrees. So that's the competition that Kenyans are up against. Secondly, in the Philippines, they've got a slightly different model. They don't produce the volume, they add value. So there's a government entity that is that regulates the sector, the overseas recruitment sector. It protects the rights of workers, and it arranges for administration support to make that happen. Okay, so again, those are two models that you might usefully take a leaf out of the book of. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's the demand is over there in the high-income countries, historically, and you've got supply from the low to middle-income countries. Now, what has happened is that you've had this COVID shock that has thrown, to make light of the situation, possibly a spanner in the works. Okay, that's caused huge disruption globally. It's exposed lots of shortcomings, including in the recruitment sector. So, as a consequence of that, you've had these high-income countries seriously analyse what's gone on and how should they fix things. And it's been recognised there that the pendulum has swung too far, that they've been taking too much and haven't been giving enough back. And so there is this recognition that they need to develop much bigger pipelines of domestic talent. Okay? Now, that's not going to happen overnight. And so for at least the medium term, these high-income countries are going to be recruiting talent from overseas. That ain't going to change, okay? But over the medium to long term, the situation will change, and there will be more equilibrium, and you will find a situation whereby international recruitment is much more of a matter of cultural exchange and far less a problem of brain drain, okay? So give it time. But right now, there is a demand for talent, and there are hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs overseas. Okay, now some of these low to middle income countries have almost had like a knee-jerk reaction. Things have happened. So you've seen stuff happening, for example, in Zimbabwe, where the generals have simply put the anchors down and stopped the nursing council issuing certificates that you need. In Kenya, for example, the government's changed its status from green to amber. Okay, so as a result of this sort of reaction, the demand hasn't changed. So the high-income countries are simply taking the next taxi from the rank. Okay, there are no jobs going unfilled in these countries because Kenya has an amber status. Okay, the jobs are still being filled by people from other countries. So it's a question of what do you do? And I would suggest that you play to your strengths. Be competitive about this. Where is your comparative advantage versus other source countries compared to India, to the Philippines, and all the other long list? And I would suggest that there are 4 or 5 areas that you might want to look at. Firstly, you might want to preserve the amber status as a competitive bulwark. Okay, so in the same way that you've got recruitment from the Philippines, which is the subject to a government-to-government arrangement, it is not a free-for-all private sector green list situation. You could usefully use the same method here if you, as a collective group of healthcare unions, organise to speak with one voice, okay, which is on the advertising, use your collective bargaining power to influence government policy. That, I think, is something that will work in this country. There's another slogan behind me: all carders. Okay, now health and social care is not just health; it's also social care. So, for example, I don't see any social workers represented here, but there are loads of jobs as social workers. There are loads of jobs as speech therapists, all the other disciplines. Okay, so make sure that you are the bigger church and not just focusing narrowly on the secondary care and the acute stuff. That certainly is one to look at. Thirdly, and there are 4 points, that you have some specific cultural advantages in Africa, in Kenya. For example, the aspects of the community-based care, which are really big. And you've heard some speakers today, and you had speakers yesterday talking about the preeminence and the importance of community care. There are, while that may be done informally in Africa, those are paying jobs in these other countries. So if there's a way to channel your talent into those jobs, that is an opportunity. And lastly, I would say that if you get that right, if you organise yourselves properly, you come up with the right recipe, why can't you be a role model for Africa? Why not start regionally in East African community? Because nobody from Africa is doing this. There is an opportunity for Kenya to be leaders here. Yes, it requires teamwork. Okay, success will only come as a result of teamwork. But if I look back to years past, you've got track and field, you've got rugby players. You know, Kenyans, when you work together as teams, you can be world champions. Thank you for your time.
Hello guys, welcome to Raising Boys with Glado, the nutritionist. Today I'm making something, a recipe I've seen online called Chelsea buns. Yeah, that's what you're going to make today.
Baby.